Last year, Penn State finally sort of got over the hump. Everyone's been giving James Franklin a ton of flack over the years for not being able to win big games or advance to the postseason. Penn State made it pretty far last year, but many are wondering if they can take an even larger step in 2025 and finally win a national championship. I mean, honestly, the Nittany Lions team is set up for them to do really well this year as they return a big-time quarterback, their top two running backs, a good defense, a good offensive line, and they grabbed a couple of good playmakers out of the portal at the receiver spot. It seems like on paper, Penn State should be able to take the next step, and in today's video, we're going to preview them. We're going to talk about last season, their key players for this year, who they brought in and who they lost, and I'm going to give a game-by-game prediction for this year's Nittany Lions team. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and preview the 2025 Nittany Lions. Okay, so going back to last year, Penn State had a ton of hype, and they started out ranked number 8 in the country. Their first game would come on the road against West Virginia, who was pretty hyped up, but they would win this game pretty easily, 34-12, and they took off in the second half. Andy Kotelnicki proved to be a really good hire at the offensive coordinator spot, and they'd carry that into week 2, at least we thought. Bowling Green would come to town, and led by Connor Bazelak and Harold Fannin, this game was closer than many people expected, and Penn State only won by 7. Okay, they were 2-0, and then they become 3-0 after blasting Kent State. Their first big test would come at home against number 19 Illinois, and this game proved not to be much of a challenge either, as Penn State won 21-7. They are now 4-0 in the month of September, and things would not change much in the month of October. They would beat UCLA 27-11, and then would go on the road and face USC. This was a huge game in the non-conference, but USC had fallen off a bit, and ultimately USC lost by 3, and Penn State survived in overtime. It was a thriller. After that, they went on the road to play against Wisconsin, and Bo Prabula helped save the day, and now all of a sudden they were 7-0. They would now face the boogeyman, which was Ohio State to them, and they were not able to get over the hump. It was a little bit closer than the last couple of games as they only lost by 7, but it was kind of a boring game, and the Buckeyes won by 7. From there, they would get some revenge as they would destroy Washington 35-6, and then go on the road to Purdue and win 49-10. They could still have an opportunity to make the Big Ten championship with some help, and luckily that would happen. They'd go beat Minnesota on the road 26-25, which was a really close game, and then they'd come back home and play against their rival Maryland and win 44-7. What they would need is an Ohio State loss. Oregon had already clinched their spot in the Big Ten title game. Ohio State somehow blew it at home to Michigan, who was honestly not that good, and Penn State got a chance to go to Indianapolis instead of the Buckeyes. Kind of funny. They would face off with number 1 Oregon in the Big Ten title, and this game was close, but they ended up losing by 7. It didn't really matter that much though, because everybody was wondering how Penn State would do in the college football playoff. Well, they showed up. They would blast SMU out of the stadium 38-10, and would carry that on against number 9 Boise State. They would shut down Ashton Genty and win that game 31-14 before facing off at number 5 Notre Dame. This game was one of the best of the college football playoff, and sadly they would fall a field goal short. Penn State made it pretty far, and ended up going 13-3 with an 8-1 record in the Big Ten. They'd finish at number 5 in the nation, and it seemed like they were in a good spot. The hires of Andy Kotelnicki and Tom Allen proved to be really good, and Penn State ended up having some good players. Drew Aller was one of the best quarterbacks in the country with 3,300 yards and 24 touchdowns, and his backup Bo Prabula was also really solid. He'd end up transferring away, but at the running back spot, both Katron Allen and Nick Singleton went crazy. They each had over 1,000 yards, and Nick Singleton also had 12 touchdowns, while Katron had 8. At the receiver spot, tight end Tyler Warren continued their tight end factory stigma, as he had over 104 catches for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns, and won the John Mackey Award. Harrison Wallace became their top receiver with 46 catches for 720 yards and 4 touchdowns, and transfer Amari Evans also had 21 catches for 415 yards and 5 touchdowns. Oh yeah, and I forgot, Sean Clifford's little brother Liam Clifford had 5 scores as well. Julian Fleming was unfortunately a bust as he transferred in from Ohio State, but on the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Reed led the way with 98 total tackles, Abdul Carter led the way with 12 total sacks, Elliott Washington II had 6 pass deflections, and then there was a 4-way tie for interceptions as Dominic DeLuca, Zakiya Wheatley, Jalen Reed, and Tony Rojas all had 3. Penn State ended up sending a decent amount of talent off to the 2025 NFL Draft, as Abdul Carter went with pick number 3 to the New York Giants, and he's a future defensive end star, and then Tyler Warren would go a couple picks later at pick number 14 to the Indianapolis Colts. After that, we'd have to wait until round 3, as the Titans would select Kevin Winston Jr., a safety, and then the other safety, Jalen Reed, would go in the 6th round to Houston. To close out the draft, the Vikings ended up taking Kobe King, a linebacker, and 5 picks was pretty solid for Penn State, to be honest. Looking ahead to 2025, obviously James Franklin is once again back, and Andy Kotelnicki will be back in his 2nd season. They'd end up having to get Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator, as Tom Allen left for Clemson, and they also got some good recruits. Penn State's recruiting class ranked number 19 in the country, which was headlined by 5-star interior offensive lineman Malachi Goodman, who comes out of the state of New Jersey. In terms of their transfer portal class, it ranked 45th in the country, but they got a couple of important players. They grabbed 4-star linebacker Amari Campbell from North Carolina, King Mack, a safety transfer from Alabama, TJ Shanahan from Texas A&M, Devontae Ross, a receiver from Troy, Kyron Hudson, a receiver from USC, and the big addition was Trevor Pena. He was a 4-star receiver that transferred in from Syracuse, and he's the sort of home run hitter that Penn State really needed. At the quarterback spot, Drew Aller returns, and he has a ton of NFL hype. Many are saying he could be the best quarterback in the Big Ten, if not in the country. We'll see. Behind him, you have former 4-star recruit Ethan Grunkemeyer, and then Jackson Smolik will round out the quarterback room. At the running back spot, somehow they managed to convince both Nick Singleton and Katron Allen to come back, as this will be what I feel like is their 4th year together, and they form the best 1-2 punch of any running back room in the country. Behind him, you'll also have Cam Wallace. The receiver spot is going to be interesting, as it looks like they're going to have 3 transfers start: Devontae Ross from Troy, Trevor Pena from Syracuse, and Kyron Hudson from USC. Honestly, I think Liam Clifford deserves an opportunity to start, and then guys like Anthony Ivey, Caden Saunders, and Tyseer Denmark should also get an opportunity to get on the field. The tight end spot has been really solid for Penn State over the year, and they have another good one. Luke Reynolds was a borderline 5-star recruit in the class of 2024, so now we'll get to see what he can do as a full-fledged starter, and if not, Khalil Dinkins, a redshirt senior, will get an opportunity to get on the field. I'm not even going to try to go through the defense, as I'm not going to mispronounce names, and I don't necessarily know who's going to start. There's definitely some really good players there though, and Penn State always has a good defense, and always has a couple of good edge rushers. But how will this translate on the field next year? Well, personally, I'm ridiculously high on Penn State, as I think they're going to have a near-perfect season. In Week 1, they will face off against Nevada, who is not going to give them any sort of competition. They are a couple years away from being competitive, and Penn State will get to 1-0. In Week 2, they play against Florida International, and we have talked about them on the channel a bit. They're one of the worst programs in college football. They'll win that game pretty easily, before they then play an FCS team in Villanova in Week 3. Okay, I don't know who decided to schedule for Penn State, but this is kind of pathetic. They're playing 3 of the worst teams in college football the first 3 weeks, before all of a sudden having to play against Oregon. Oregon will be led by new quarterback Dante Moore, but they lost their top receiver, and there's a couple of holes that need to be plugged in. I still think Oregon is going to be near the top of the Big Ten, and probably gets to the playoff, but honestly, I think Penn State wins this game. They're at home, and I think they win it close. It'll be a lot of fun, and they'll carry that momentum against UCLA. UCLA is going to get a lot of media attention because of the Amaliava brothers and their new offensive coordinator Tino Sunseri, but I still don't think UCLA is all that good. Maybe, just maybe, Penn State is caught sleepwalking across the country in their first road game, but I highly doubt it. I think Penn State wins this game by a mile and cruises to 5-0. From there, they come back home and will play against Northwestern. David Braun pulled a rabbit out of the hat a couple of years ago, but I'm not quite sure where Northwestern stands right now. They grabbed former SMU quarterback Preston Stone out of the portal, but I don't see them being all that competitive. Penn State wins this game by a lot, and they close out the first half of the season with a 6-0 record, with their only notable game being against Oregon. The second half of the schedule gets a little bit more difficult, as it first starts out on the road against Iowa. I feel like Iowa upsets a team each and every year, and this time they might actually have a decent quarterback. Mark Gronowski transfers in from South Dakota State, and he was an absolute stud for the Jackrabbits, but turning around that Iowa offense is extremely difficult. With this game being at Kinnick, I give them an opportunity to maybe play spoiler. This is the biggest trap game on the roster, but I think Penn State pulls through in the end, maybe like they did back in 2017. That was that crazy game with the walk-off touchdown. Maybe that'll happen or maybe it won't, but after that, they get to face the boogeyman again as they play against Ohio State. I've already talked about this game in some of my other videos, but I think Penn State is going to pull it off. I can't tell you why, but after years and years of coming close and not being able to put it all together, I think this is Penn State's best chance. I mean, when else is it going to happen? Ohio State is obviously to be really good, but they have some question marks in my opinion. This game will obviously be close, but I think Penn State pulls it off. It probably won't happen, but I'm going to make the pick anyways. This keeps their undefeated season alive before they play at home against Indiana. 2 years ago, Tom Allen's Hoosiers came in and almost beat them in Happy Valley, and they didn't get a chance to play last year, but now you get to meet in the middle. Indiana should be decent this year with Fernando Mendoza at quarterback and Curt Cignetti as the head man, but I don't think Indiana has what it takes to go in there and win, especially if they are fresh off a win over Ohio State. To close out the season, they will then go on the road to East Lansing as they will play against Michigan State, who's led by head coach Jonathan Smith, and will bring back second-year starter Aiden Childs. Childs was a mixed bag last year for Sparty, and we'll see how he does this season. I'm not that optimistic about Michigan State, and that's why I think Penn State cruises pretty easily. To finish out the year, they will then play at home against Dylan Raiola and Nebraska, and while this game could be a little bit fun in the first half, Penn State probably pulls away in the second half, and I'm not choosing Nebraska to win games late anytime soon. They just cannot figure things out in the month of November ever. Finally, they will go on the road to play against Rutgers, and I have no idea what this Scarlet Knight team is going to look like. They lost their best player in Kyle Monangai, so I think Rutgers gets blasted. That leaves me with the prediction that Penn State goes undefeated in the regular season. Obviously, games against Oregon and Ohio State are going to be circled, but then matchups between Iowa and Indiana will also, I think, be intriguing. Many will disagree that I'm picking them to beat Ohio State, but I don't really care. It's my video, I can say whatever the heck I want. Obviously, things would depend on matchups, but I'm picking Penn State to win it all. Last year, I picked Ohio State to win it all, and that ended up working out, even though it didn't look like it would at the end of November, but it did. Penn State's my pick to win the national championship this year, and I hope they don't let me down. They have a quarterback who on paper should be able to do everything, 2 running backs who started for 4 years, 3 decent receivers, a good offensive line, a good defense, a somewhat favorable schedule, and a lot of momentum from last year. If there's ever a year that Penn State can do it, it's now, and if they don't, James Franklin might be told to hit the road. Who knows, but my official prediction is that Penn State goes undefeated, and that's really all. But what do you guys think? If you're a Penn State fan, what did I get right and wrong? Who are the key players, and who are you most excited to watch? Also, what other teams should I cover in my next preview? And before you go, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.